Somewhere in the ocean right now, a pregnant great white shark is swimming, and in over 50 years of tracking, tagging, filming, and studying the most famous predator on Earth, no human being has ever seen what happens next. Not on film, not in person, not even by accident, the birth of a great white shark has never been witnessed or recorded by science, and that fact sits at the center of one of the biggest blind spots in modern marine biology. We have put cameras on the moon, sequenced the human genome, and landed robots on Mars, and we still cannot find where the ocean's apex predator goes to have its pups. Every great white shark nursery ever proposed has been inferred from juvenile sightings, never confirmed by a birth. And the pregnant females scientists have tracked via satellite tag have a habit of diving deep and going silent exactly when it matters most. This is not a minor gap in the literature. It means we do not know where great whites are most vulnerable, where their young spend the first months of life, or what conditions those pups need to survive. Great white sharks are listed as vulnerable to extinction. Their populations have declined dramatically in recent decades, and we are trying to protect an animal whose most critical life event we have never once observed. Everyone knows what a great white looks like: the fin, the teeth, the eye. But almost nobody knows that the biology underneath that image is full of gaps, so large that researchers openly describe the species as poorly understood for something so famous. Today, we are going through the full story: what great whites actually are, how their reproduction works, why finding a nursery has defeated every attempt so far, and what the failure to find one means for the species' survival. We will cover shark biology, the mechanics of white shark pregnancy, 50 years of tagging data, the candidate nursery sites researchers have proposed, and why every lead has so far come up short. Welcome to Reef Chronicles. This is the channel where we follow the ocean into the biology most people never see, and the great white shark birth mystery is one of the most consequential unsolved problems in marine science. Subscribe before we start. We cover the ocean's strangest and most urgent biology on this channel, and the great white story sits at the intersection of ancient evolution, conservation crisis, and a question science has not answered after half a century of trying. Stick around to the end, because the section on why finding the nursery matters is not about satisfying curiosity. It is about whether great white sharks survive the next 100 years. The pregnant shark swimming somewhere in the ocean right now does not know we are looking for her. She is running a reproductive program 450 million years in the making, and we have not found the room where it ends. Nobody has ever seen a great white shark give birth, and by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why that sentence is not an exaggeration, and exactly what it costs us. Let us start from the beginning, because understanding why the birth has never been seen requires understanding what kind of animal a great white shark actually is, and most people's picture is built almost entirely from what happens above the surface. Great white sharks are not fish in the way most people picture fish. They are cartilaginous, warm-blooded in a way most sharks are not, and built around a biology so different from bony fish that comparing them is like comparing a bat to a sparrow. The species Carcharodon carcharias belongs to the order Lamniformes, the mackerel sharks, a group that includes mako sharks, salmon sharks, and the extinct megalodon, and whose members share a capacity for regional endothermy that sets them apart from almost every other shark. Regional endothermy means great whites run their core muscles, brains, and eyes warmer than the surrounding water. Not warm-blooded like a mammal, but significantly warmer than a typical fish, which gives them faster reactions and the ability to hunt in cold water where prey cannot keep up. A great white skeleton is entirely cartilage, no bones, which means the fossil record consists almost entirely of teeth, and reconstructing their evolutionary history requires working from the most durable part of an animal that leaves almost nothing else behind. Adult great whites are apex predators across a range spanning every ocean except the Arctic. They eat marine mammals, large fish, and other sharks, and their role in controlling prey populations makes them ecosystem engineers whose absence reshapes everything below them in the food web. They grow slowly, mature late, and reproduce infrequently. A female great white does not reach sexual maturity until roughly 33 years of age, and she likely gives birth only every 2 to 3 years after a gestation period that may last over a year. That life history, slow growth, late maturity, low reproductive output makes great whites among the most vulnerable large predators on Earth to overfishing and bycatch, because removing adults faster than they can reproduce is a mathematically losing equation. Females are substantially larger than males. The largest confirmed great whites are all female, reaching over 6 meters and possibly beyond. And the size difference is thought to relate to the energetic demands of pregnancy in a species that gestates live pups. Sharks as a group have been on Earth for roughly 450 million years. They predate trees, predate dinosaurs, and survived every mass extinction the planet has produced, including the event that ended the Cretaceous. The great white, as we know it, is a geologically recent species appearing in the fossil record roughly 11 million years ago, but it descends from lineages that were already ancient when the Atlantic Ocean was young. 450 million years of survival means sharks solved reproduction in a medium where hiding is difficult, predators are everywhere, and the young must be capable enough to survive from the moment they are born, which is part of why shark pups are born large, mobile, and immediately independent. Great white pups are born at roughly 1 to 1.5 meters long, already capable of hunting, already armed with functional teeth, and receiving zero parental care from the moment birth is complete. That independence from birth is part of why the birth itself is so hard to find. There is no nest, no den, no return to a fixed site, and no post-birth behavior that would anchor the mother to a location researchers could monitor. Sharks have outlasted every extinction event Earth has thrown at them, and the one threat they appear least equipped to survive is us, arriving at scale in the last century with nets, long lines, and fins worth more than the animal attached to them. Coming up, the full mechanics of great white reproduction, including what we know about gestation, litter size, and the intrauterine cannibalism that makes shark pregnancy one of the most extreme in the animal kingdom. Then the birth mystery in full, every lead researchers have followed, every candidate nursery that turned out to be something else, and why the ocean keeps hiding the answer. Stay with us, because once you understand how great white reproduction works, the fact that we have never seen it will stop sounding like a minor gap and start sounding like an emergency. Great white sharks are viviparous. They give birth to live young rather than laying eggs, and the embryos develop inside the mother through a process that is both biologically extraordinary and almost entirely unobserved in the wild. Early in development, great white embryos consume unfertilized eggs produced by the mother, a process called oophagy, meaning the first thing a great white does in the womb is eat, competing with its siblings for nutritional resources before it is even born. In some shark species, the most developed embryo goes further and consumes its siblings directly, intrauterine cannibalism called adelphophagy, and while this has not been confirmed in great whites specifically, related lamnid sharks show the pattern, and great white litter sizes suggest significant embryo loss in utero. Litter sizes in great whites are estimated at 2 to 12 pups, though the upper end comes from examining deceased pregnant females rather than observed births, meaning even our litter size estimates carry significant uncertainty. Gestation length in great whites is estimated at 12 to 18 months based on growth data and the reproductive cycles of related species, but this estimate has never been validated by observing a known individual through a complete pregnancy. The evidence for great white reproduction comes almost entirely from 3 sources: examining pregnant females caught incidentally by fishing operations, tagging data showing female movement patterns, and juvenile sightings in areas hypothesized to be nurseries. None of those sources has produced a birth observation. The pregnant females die before giving birth, the tags lose signal or are shed, and the juveniles are found after the fact with no record of where they entered the ocean. The most famous attempt to document great white reproduction involves satellite tagging pregnant females near California, and following their movements, the sharks dove deep, moved offshore, and the tags either reported from remote locations or stopped transmitting entirely. One tagged female, nicknamed Emma by researchers at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, moved far offshore into the open Pacific during what appeared to be her gestation window, a region researchers call the White Shark Café, and the question of whether this area serves a reproductive function has never been answered. The White Shark Café sits between California and Hawaii, a seemingly featureless stretch of open ocean that multiple tagged great whites visit annually, and researchers have debated for years whether it is a mating ground, a birthing ground, a feeding aggregation, or something else entirely. An expedition to the White Shark Café found sharks diving in distinctive patterns, deep dives during the day, shallower at night, consistent with hunting deep-sea prey rather than reproductive behavior, but the sample size was too small to rule out a dual function. The honest status of great white reproduction knowledge is this: we know the mechanism, we have estimates for the timeline, and we have zero confirmed observations of a wild birth or a confirmed nursery habitat. To be precise about what is missing, no researcher, no fisherman, no diver, and no camera has ever documented a great white shark in the act of giving birth in the wild. No confirmed great white shark nursery has ever been identified, meaning no location where pregnant females consistently give birth and where newborn pups reliably appear in the weeks following. No pregnant great white has ever been maintained in captivity long enough to give birth. Every attempt to keep a great white in an aquarium has failed within weeks, with animals refusing to feed and deteriorating rapidly despite the best available care. The Monterey Bay Aquarium held great whites temporarily more successfully than any other institution, keeping juveniles for months before release. But even their program never involved a pregnant female, and birthing in captivity was never a realistic option. Every juvenile great white aggregation ever documented in the waters off California, South Africa, and Australia represents pups that were already born somewhere, already swimming, already feeding, with the birth event behind them and unrecorded. The gap between what we know and what we have seen is not a technical failure waiting for better cameras. It is a fundamental mismatch between where great whites give birth and anywhere humans have been able to look. Compare this to other large marine species. Humpback whales give birth in documented breeding lagoons. Leatherback turtles return to specific beaches. Elephant seals deliver pups on monitored rookeries. And the great white stands out as uniquely invisible at the moment of reproduction. The closest anyone has come is finding a very recently born pup animals with umbilical scars still fresh, estimated days old, which tells researchers the birth happened nearby, recently, but tells them nothing about where or how. Those fresh pup sightings have generated candidate nursery locations, particular stretches of coastline where multiple fresh-scarred juveniles have appeared, but candidate is doing heavy lifting in that sentence, and none have been confirmed. What we have never seen is a single data point that would let researchers say with confidence, great whites give birth here, at this depth, in these conditions, and this is what it looks like. Coming up, the biology behind why finding a great white birth is so difficult, including the depth ranges pregnant females prefer, and why satellite tags keep failing at the critical moment. Then the tagging data, 50 years of following great whites across oceans, and what the tracks tell us and do not tell us about where reproduction happens. The biology section is where the mystery stops being surprising and starts being inevitable given how great whites live. The birth being hidden almost makes sense. Great whites spend the majority of their time in water column depths and offshore distances that place them far beyond where divers, snorkelers, or nearshore cameras could ever observe them naturally. Pregnant females in particular show a tendency toward deeper, warmer, more offshore water behavior that may serve thermoregulatory functions for developing embryos, but that takes them precisely away from the coastal zones where human observation is easiest. Satellite tags on great whites transmit when the animal surfaces, but great whites can go hours between surfacing events. And a female approaching birth may alter her surface behavior in ways that reduce transmission windows further. Pop-up archival tags, which detach after a set period and float to the surface to transmit stored data, give depth and temperature profiles, but no real-time location, meaning researchers know where a shark was weeks ago, not where it is now. The birth itself, if it follows the pattern of related species, may be rapid hours rather than days, which means even a perfectly tagged female in a known location could give birth in the window between transmissions without leaving a detectable signal. Great whites do not appear to use fixed sites for reproduction the way some species do. The evidence suggests births may occur across a range of locations depending on the individual female's migration pattern, which makes staking out a specific spot nearly impossible. The depth at which birth occurs is unknown. It could be near surface, mid-water, or deeper. And each possibility requires different monitoring technology that does not yet exist in a form deployable across the areas pregnant females frequent. White sharks also have electroreceptors called ampullae of Lorenzini that detect the bioelectric fields of other animals. They are exquisitely sensitive to the presence of foreign objects in their environment, which may make them actively avoid areas where research equipment is deployed. The combination of offshore range, depth preference, unpredictable birth timing, rapid birth duration, and possible avoidance of monitoring equipment creates a problem that more money and more cameras does not straightforwardly solve. Biology itself is hiding the birth not through intent, but through 450 million years of evolutionary pressure selecting for reproduction. That happens far from anything that could threaten a vulnerable mother or newborn pup. Satellite tagging of great white sharks began in earnest in the 1990s and has since produced tracks of hundreds of individuals across the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans, the most comprehensive movement data set ever assembled for the species. Those tracks reveal that great whites are not random wanderers. They follow consistent seasonal migration routes, return to the same aggregation sites year after year, and show sex-segregated movement patterns that suggest males and females use the ocean differently. Female great whites tagged off California's Farallon Islands show a pattern of spending summer and autumn at the aggregation site, then departing offshore toward the Central Pacific for months before returning. And the offshore phase coincides with the estimated reproductive window. Similar offshore excursions have been documented for female great whites tagged off South Africa, with animals tracked moving into the deep Indian Ocean and then returning to coastal aggregation sites, a pattern consistent with reproduction occurring in offshore open water. The tagging data has effectively ruled out shallow, nearshore coastal areas as primary birthing locations for adult females. The pregnant sharks are simply not in those waters at the right time, which eliminates the most easily monitored environments. What the tagging data cannot tell us is what the sharks are doing during the offshore phase, whether they are feeding, mating, resting, giving birth, or some combination, because the tags record position and depth, not behavior. The most informative tags ever deployed on great whites are accelerometer tags that record fine-scale movement body rolls, tail beats, burst speed. And these have revealed behavioral states researchers can classify as feeding or cruising, but no tag has yet captured what birth looks like in the data. 50 years of tagging has narrowed the search area while deepening the mystery. We know roughly where pregnant females go. But going there and watching has not produced results, and the ocean is large enough that knowing the general region is still not close enough. Coming up, the specific candidate nursery locations researchers have proposed, why each one has generated excitement, and why none has been confirmed. Then why science has structurally failed to witness this event, not for lack of trying, but because of constraints that are more fundamental than equipment. The candidate nursery section is where the frustration lives, because the leads are real, the logic is sound, and the answer keeps not being there. The primary candidate great white nursery in the northeastern Pacific is a stretch of coast in Southern California and Baja California, where juvenile great whites under 2 meters appear seasonally in shallow, warm, nearshore waters. Juvenile great whites have been documented in these Baja waters for decades. Small animals, fresh umbilical scars, consistent with recent birth, and the area has been studied intensively by researchers, including Chris Lowe and the California State Long Beach Shark Lab. The critical problem is that the juveniles arrive in these shallow waters already born. The births themselves happen somewhere else, and the pups move into the nearshore nursery habitat after the fact, making the coastal zone a nursery for young animals but not a birthing site for pregnant females. Researchers have attempted to tag juvenile great whites in Baja waters and follow them back toward wherever they came from, but juvenile tags shed quickly as animals grow, and the tracks produced are too short to reach a birth location. Off the coast of New Zealand, juvenile great whites appear near Stewart Island and along the South Island coast, another aggregation of small animals suggesting a nearby birth area that has never been pinpointed, despite years of focused searching. In South Africa, The waters around Gansbai and False Bay are famous for great white aggregations of adults, but pregnant females and newborn pups are conspicuously absent from these well-studied sites, suggesting South African great whites birth elsewhere and adults return to feed. The open ocean hypothesis that great whites give birth in deep offshore water with no reference to any coastal feature is the most consistent with tagging data, but the least testable with any technology currently available. If births happen in open water at depth, the monitoring challenge is equivalent to staking out a specific 10 square kilometer patch of featureless ocean, waiting for an event that lasts hours in an animal that does not surface predictably. It is not a solvable problem with current methods. Environmental DNA eDNA collected from water samples represents a newer approach, detecting the genetic signature of great whites in water without seeing the animal, and researchers have begun applying it to candidate nursery areas. eDNA can confirm great white presence in a water mass, but it cannot confirm reproductive activity. Detecting a shark's DNA tells you the animal passed through, not that it gave birth there, and the signal fades too quickly to reconstruct a birth event after the fact. Myth 1. Great white sharks are man-eaters by preference. Unprovoked attacks on humans are almost always investigatory bites from an animal using its mouth. The way we use hands, great whites feeding on humans as prey, is exceptionally rare and not consistent with documented feeding behavior. Myth 2. Great whites are mindless killing machines. Decades of behavioral research show great whites are curious, cautious, individually variable in temperament, and capable of learning. The blank-eyed automaton of popular culture does not match the animal researchers actually observe. Myth 3. Great white populations are healthy and stable. Global populations have declined. Significantly, estimates suggest reductions of over 70% in some regions over recent decades, and the species meets the criteria for vulnerable status under conservation assessments. Myth 4. Megalodon and great whites are directly ancestral. Current evidence suggests great whites descended from a different lineage than Megalodon. The two represent separate evolutionary branches that convergently evolved large body size, not a direct grandmother-granddaughter relationship. Myth 5. Great whites hunt by smell alone. They use a sophisticated array of senses, including electroreception, lateral line vibration detection, vision at close range, and hearing for low-frequency pressure waves. Smell is important, but one channel among several. Myth 6. We understand great white behavior well because they have been studied so long. The birth mystery is the most visible example of how little we know, but researchers also lack consensus on mating behavior, social hierarchy, communication, and cognition. Myth 7. Great whites are solitary and antisocial. Aggregation sites like the Farallones and Guadalupe Island show consistent social hierarchies, with larger animals having priority access to food and smaller animals deferring. Not a social species like dolphins, but not purely solitary either. Myth 8. Protecting great whites means more attacks on humans. Research consistently shows that human-shark conflict rates are not determined by shark population size. They are determined by human behavior in the water, and healthy shark populations correlate with healthy ocean ecosystems that benefit humans. Myth 9. Great whites are apex predators with no natural threats. Orcas kill great white sharks, documented multiple times off California and South Africa, and the presence of orcas causes great whites to abandon aggregation sites for months, demonstrating a genuine predator-prey dynamic. Myth 10. The birth mystery will be solved soon with better technology. Researchers are cautiously optimistic about new tools, but the fundamental challenge is behavioral, not technological. We need the shark to be in a place we can watch, and that has not happened yet, regardless of the equipment available. Coming up, the honest assessment of where great white research stands, what finding the nursery would actually change for conservation, and whether we are getting closer or running out of time. Then the recap, every major idea pulled together, because this mystery connects to every other gap in what we know about a species we have been studying for half a century. The honest assessment is where the mystery and the urgency collide, because not knowing where great whites give birth is not just an interesting puzzle, it is a conservation liability. Here is what we can say with confidence. Great white sharks are viviparous, give birth to live pups, have litters estimated at 2 to 12, and undergo a gestation likely lasting over a year. We know that pregnant females move offshore during their reproductive window, that juvenile aggregations exist in specific coastal areas, and that newborn pups appear in some of those areas with fresh umbilical scars indicating recent birth. Here is what we cannot say with confidence: where births occur, at what depth, in what habitat type, under what conditions, and whether the behavior varies between populations in different ocean basins. The conservation stakes of this ignorance are concrete. If we do not know where great whites give birth, we cannot protect that habitat. And if births happen in areas currently exposed to fishing pressure, noise pollution, or shipping traffic, pup survival may already be compromised without us knowing. Great whites reproduce so slowly that losing even a fraction of pups per generation to an unidentified stressor in an unidentified location could be pushing populations toward collapse faster than surface-level population counts. Reveal. The most likely path to finding the birth location is a combination of long-duration tags on known pregnant females, eDNA surveys of candidate offshore areas, and acoustic monitoring arrays that could detect behavioral signatures associated with birth. But deploying all three simultaneously on the right animal in the right place has not happened. The honest position held by researchers most deeply embedded in great white biology is cautious. Hope, better tools are coming, the candidate areas are narrowing, and the first birth observation may be years rather than decades away. But cautious hope is not a conservation plan, and the species' vulnerability means the nursery question needs an answer before population trends make the question academic. Great white sharks are cartilaginous, regionally warm-blooded apex predators belonging to the order Lamniformes, not the mindless killing machines of popular culture, but slow-maturing, infrequently reproducing animals with life history traits that make them extremely vulnerable to population decline. Sharks, as a group, have been on Earth 450 million years, surviving every mass extinction, but the great white as a species has existed for roughly 11 million years and has never faced a predator as efficient at removing adults as modern industrial fishing. Females do not reach sexual maturity until approximately 33 years of age, meaning every adult female killed before that age is a reproductive loss that cannot be compensated for quickly. Great whites are viviparous live birth, not eggs with embryos nourished in utero through oophagy and possibly sibling competition, producing litters of 2 to 12 pups born at over a meter long and immediately independent. Gestation is estimated at 12 to 18 months, but has never been confirmed by observing a known individual through a complete pregnancy. Every reproductive timeline we have is inferred, not measured. No human has ever witnessed a great white shark giving birth in the wild, not on film, not in person, not by accident, and this is not a recent failure, but a gap that has persisted across the entire history of great white research. No confirmed great white nursery exists. Candidate locations have been identified based on juvenile aggregations, but the births that produce those juveniles happen somewhere else, and that somewhere has never been found. No pregnant great white has survived long enough in captivity to give birth. The species cannot be maintained in aquaria for the duration of a gestation, making captive observation impossible with current knowledge. Satellite tagging data shows pregnant females moving offshore during their reproductive window toward the Central Pacific, in the case of California aggregating sharks, into the Indian Ocean for South African animals. But what happens in those offshore areas is unknown. The White Shark Café in the Central Pacific was proposed as a possible mating or birthing area. An expedition found behavioral evidence more consistent with feeding than reproduction, but the question remains open. The biology of great whites makes the birth inherently hard to observe. Deep offshore range, unpredictable surface behavior, rapid birth duration, and possible avoidance of monitoring equipment all compound the challenge. Candidate nurseries in Baja California, New Zealand, and other regions contain juvenile aggregations, but not birthing females. The pups arrive in nearshore habitat after birth, not during it. New tools, including eDNA sampling and accelerometer tags, are being applied to the problem, but have not yet produced a birth observation or confirmed nursery location. Myths busted: great whites are not man-eaters by preference, not population stable, not descendants of megalodon, not purely solitary, and not soon to be decoded by technology alone. The conservation cost of ignorance is concrete. Without knowing where great whites give birth, we cannot protect that critical habitat. And the species' slow reproduction means undetected pup mortality could be driving population decline faster than monitoring reveals. The honest assessment: gestation confirmed as a process, birth never confirmed as an event, nursery never confirmed as a place, and urgency growing as populations trend downward in multiple ocean basins. Nobody has ever seen a great white shark give birth. That sentence opened this video, and it is still true. And keeping that fact in mind is what separates honest conservation from the comfortable fantasy that we already understand the animals we are trying to save. The shark, swimming somewhere offshore right now, carrying pups we will not see born, heading toward a location we cannot find, is running a program older than our civilization, in an ocean we have only begun to read. So, after everything in this video, what landed hardest for you? That we have tagged hundreds of great whites and still cannot find where they give birth, or that the species may be declining faster than we realize because the most critical habitat is invisible to us, or the reproductive timeline: a female not mature until 33, a gestation lasting over a year, a litter of pups born into open ocean with no parental care biology, so slow and so sparse that every lost adult female is a decade of lost reproduction, or simply that the most filmed, most studied, most culturally prominent shark on Earth has a fundamental life event that no one has ever seen, and that the ocean is large enough to keep that secret for 50 more years if we do not try harder. Drop your answer in the comments, we read them all. And great white threads on this channel tend to run deep, because the gap between public perception and scientific reality is so large that almost every comment surfaces a new angle. Subscribe if you have not already. Reef Chronicles covers the living ocean with this much depth on every subject, and the next video is already in production. Our next video goes somewhere even stranger: biology, so extreme it makes great white reproduction look straightforward by comparison. Thank you for watching all the way through. The ocean holds its secrets carefully, and the great white birth may be the most consequential one. It has not given up yet. The pregnant shark out there right now does not need us to understand her, but she needs the ocean we share with her to still be worth being born into. See you in the next one, where the reef runs deeper, the water runs colder, and the mysteries keep compounding the further we follow them. Nobody has ever seen a great white shark give birth, and the first person who does will change what we know about the ocean's most iconic predator forever. If this video made you want to see a great white shark in person, here is where to go and how to do it without contributing to the disturbance pressure already affecting aggregation sites. Guadalupe Island off Baja California is the premier great white diving destination in the world. Extraordinarily clear water, large adult sharks, and a permitting system that limits operator numbers and mandates cage diving rather than open water approaches. Gansby in South Africa offers cage diving with great whites in shallower, chummed water, a different experience from Guadalupe, more surface-oriented and heavily regulated by South African authorities, with ongoing debate about chum impact on shark behavior. Port Lincoln in South Australia offers great white encounters at the Neptune Islands, a protected marine park where operator permits are strictly limited and the sharks are habituated to cage diving without chumming at some operators. Choose operators affiliated with research institutions where possible. Several Guadalupe and South African operators partner with tagging programs, meaning your dive contributes directly to the science trying to solve the birth mystery. Whatever encounter you have, cage, boat, or underwater observation, the experience of seeing a great white in its element changes how you understand the birth mystery, because you realize immediately how little of the animal's world is accessible to us, even when we are right there. Thanks for watching Reef Chronicles, and we will see you in the next one, somewhere wilder and older still.